Okay, everyone, we're starting the next session. Boy, that last one was good and energetic, wasn't it? Oh, my God, it was wonderful. I have a few just very quick announcements to make. One is we have Lynn Rogers, our state treasurer, here. So thank you, Lynn. And I believe Lynn is going to stay through the cocktail hour or for part of the so you can visit with him. This is wonderful. Is Elizabeth Bishop here? She was. Well, it was her birthday today. She missed a happy birthday song. If you're not registered to vote, is anyone here not registered to vote? Well, remember kansasvotes.org and let everyone know about that. I'm sorry, ksvotes.org, yes. Many of you are new to Women for Kansas, and so I would like Deanna Zitterkoff and Lynn Steffen to stand up. If any of you are interested in joining our organization, please let them know. They'll be happy to talk to you about it. We have several chapters here represented, and I think you ought to know where they are from. We have Barton County and Great Bend. Where's Barton County people? Stand up so they can see. Some of our new people may want to talk to you. Cowley County and Winfield. A whole table or two over here. Hutchison. All right. Woo! Independence. Manhattan. Manhattan. Newton. Okay. North Central Kansas. Where's Ty? Okay. Southeast Kansas. We have anyone from there? Okay. And we're reforming the Wichita chapter. So again, talk to Lynn and Deanna if you would like to join the Wichita chapter. A former state legislator who's here today pointed out that if you see a candidate who shares your values, you can help them win even if they are not in your district. Every dollar and every bit of help counts. And she says that's important and we don't want to miss that message. So, we've had a lot of great topics today. We couldn't cover them all. I mean, it would have been nice to spend more time on talking about sensible gun laws in this particular point in time. Moms Demand Action are out today in force, or we would have had even more people here. But of all the topics that we have talked about, I'm sure all of us would agree that solving climate change and becoming energy independent must be included in our priorities. For this reason, I am especially proud to introduce Dorothy Barnett, our next speaker. Ms. Barnett is the Executive Director of Climate and Energy Project. She is leading the effort to address our energy future, convening diverse voices in a conservative region of the country, and pushing back on those who attempt to derail solar and other renewable energy. She's coordinated winning campaigns to protect Kansas' renewable portfolio standard from several special interest attack groups during 4 legislative sessions, allowing the wind energy to grow to 30% of our state's power generation in just a decade. Ms. Barnett has been recognized by national media, including MSNBC's Rachel Maddow. So please let us welcome Dorothy Barnett.
And she's from Hutchinson.
And she's from Hutchinson. Thank you so much, Susan, and thank you. It's my pleasure to be here with you all today and to listen to all of the great speakers, many of which I know personally and that we've worked with for a really long time. I chose this conference today over my 5-year-old granddaughter's first dance recital. I got to see her yesterday in her dress rehearsal, But the reason I do this work is for those grandchildren. And so she will understand why Nana wasn't there today on what was her very special day. But I feel really privileged to be here with all of you. So thank you. Climate change is the defining challenge of our time. It's inextricably linked to our health, to our environment, and to the communities we live in. We all need clean air to breathe and water to drink, a fair and thriving economy, and a safe and secure country. Climate change and the pollution that cause it threaten all of that and more, putting the health and well-being of all Kansans at risk, hitting hardest those who can at least afford it. It exasperates racial, gender, and class inequality, but we are fortunate because solutions exist to build resilience, economic opportunities, and healthy communities. And Kansas has enormous potential for effective climate action. So you may have heard of the IPCC, that stands for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The recent reports released just in April are very similar to things that you would have seen before. We know that the climate change is already causing more frequent and more severe storms, floods, droughts, wildfires, and other extreme weather events. But each report includes more recent and detailed science, allowing it to describe current impacts and predict future trends with much greater accuracy. The latest IPCC report shows that greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise, and that our current plans to address climate change are not ambitious enough to limit the warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. That's a threshold that scientists believe is necessary to avoid even more catastrophic impacts. So, climate change is here today. It's reshaping our world in big and small ways, but that does not mean that our future is predetermined. We still have the ability to limit further warming and to help the communities not only in Kansas, but across the world to adapt to the changes that have already occurred. Every fraction of a degree counts. So we must accelerate the global transition to clean energy and reach zero emissions as soon as possible. We also have to remove some of the carbon that's already in the atmosphere, and that means changing the way that we manage our farmland so that it can help retain more carbon. This important science guides all of our work. So the Climate and Energy Project, sometimes people call us CEP, is a 501c3 organization that builds resilience in Kansas through equitable clean energy solutions and climate action. CEP achieves this through numerous value-based strategies. We connect people, organizations, and ideas. We present science-based facts. We facilitate critical thinking and community engagement. And we work together with communities to co-create equitable and productive solutions. So just a little bit of historical context. CEP was established in 2007, so this is our 15-year anniversary. The idea behind it was that we could find common ground with people who were different and thought differently around the issues of energy efficiency and renewable energy. About 2015, we expanded our mission to include the public health impacts of climate change and the need to equitably transition to clean energy. Because of the work that we do, it incorporates a science systems-based approach and intentionally strives for equitable solutions. It requires much more collaboration across organizations and different areas of the state. So what does that look like? Sometimes the work takes a lot longer. It requires more courageous conversations. We heard folks talking about those earlier. And it simply demands that we slow down and we listen. We don't just use our solutions. We look at the communities that we're working with and the organizations that we're working with, and we try to work together to find the kinds of solutions that work for all of us. So the work that we do can be divided into four main buckets: climate resiliency, clean energy, policy, and civic participation. I'm going to tell you about the first three kind of quickly because I really want to spend most of the time on our civic participation work. So our climate resilience work centers around something that we call wealth, the wealth work. And wealth stands for water, energy, air, land, transportation, and health. The Wealth Collaborative is now a part of something called the Kansas Wealth State Table. Participating organizations all work together toward the common goal of more focused strategies for resilient and healthy communities to set inclusive, coordinated, and intentional strategies that drive equitable climate and energy policies. Together, we advocate for policies and practices that will reduce risk and increase our resilience. We host an annual Wealth Day of Advocacy at the Topeka State Capitol. Could you raise your hand if you've ever been to a Wealth Day? There are a few of you. The last event we had before the pandemic was over 400 Kansans coming together at the Capitol to talk about climate action. It was an exhilarating day and one that has sustained our staff through 2.5 really long years of not getting to be with people. So we hope to be there in person next year, and I invite all of you to join us. REAMP is a Midwestern network of 9 Midwestern states that all work together to equitably eliminate greenhouse gas emissions in the Midwest by 2050. This network provides Kansas environmental and social justice organizations with a greater platform to be able to talk about their issues and network together. And it provides a lot of professional development on climate and energy issues for different organizations. Some of our work has been centered around energy justice. In the last year, we really focused a lot of our time here in Wichita in the 67214 neighborhood, which is one of the most historically redlined neighborhoods in the country. And we worked with folks to come up with the People's Energy Plan. And it really was a place where folks reached out to Evergy and said, these are the kinds of programs we want. These are the kinds of energy efficiency programs we want. We're also working more in Northeast Kansas under what we call our Latine outreach. We've hired some Spanish-speaking organizers to start talking with people about their energy bills and talking with them about health and equity as it relates to climate change. The Kansas Climate and Health Declaration, which some of you may be aware of, is a program that works to increase the awareness of the impacts of climate change and health. We work to increase civic engagement and to advance policies that will build community resilience and safeguard the future of our state. This is a place, there's a website, resilientkansas.org, where you can go if you represent an organization and sign up an organization to support that you want climate action in Kansas and that you're concerned about it for public health reasons. It's also a place where individuals can sign up. So far, we have 42 organizations across the state that have supported the Kansas Climate and Health Declaration and 700 signatures. So I hope to see all of you sign that today as well. The other piece of our work is clean energy and policy. Clean energy, we talk a lot about solar, wind, and energy efficiency. Equitable clean energy solutions ensure fair and equal access to emerging technologies in wind, solar, and energy efficiency. Those are opportunities to help folks save money, they create jobs, and they build climate resilience around the state. We work to mobilize communities and businesses around clean energy policy that impact their lived experiences. We also work to educate the public around energy issues, and we intervene at the State House on energy policy. We have long since been a resource for planning commissions, county commissions, and policymakers at both the local and state levels as they try to work to navigate the transition to a clean energy economy. Climate and Energy Project and members of our Clean Energy Business Council have been leading the charge to fight against unfair policies that thwart solar adoption with something we call the Save Kansas Solar Campaign. Additionally, utility scale solar continues to grow, and we work hard to provide education to county commissioners and planning commissions as they work on local regulations and to advocate for fair policies that will allow utility scale solar to grow. Any of you who might be in the Douglas or Johnson County area, there's been a lot of talk about regulations on solar. So just like with wind energy before it, there's a lot of misinformation that gets shared about solar information. And so helping regulators to understand fact from fiction is a really key piece of the work that we do. Susan said that we had 30% of our energy generation from wind, and I must have given you an old bio because today we're almost 47% of our energy in Kansas comes from wind. Over the last decade, that wind energy has helped to reduce emissions in the power sector 40%. So we really are seeing an impact on energy emissions. In 2022, this legislative session, there were a lot of things to focus on, but for folks like us, it was trying to defeat eight anti-renewable energy bills, all that came out of Senator Mike Thompson's committee. And so despite the fact that clean energy by and large has been a bipartisan issue for a number of years, we saw a lot of attacks on clean energy. Energy efficiency is the other space that we work in when it comes to clean energy. When I say energy efficiency, what we're talking about is the use of less energy to provide the same or better products, services, or amenities. And so if we can increase efficiency, that allows more control over our energy use at home and in our businesses. It lowers cost and provides a lot of multiple benefits for households, businesses, and for the environment. So if we're using less energy, we're reducing pollution and benefiting climate risk. The other piece of our work is policy. CEP, as I said, responds to rapidly evolving climate and energy issues by mobilizing Kansans to take action through advocacy, through coalition building, through legislative action, and through regulatory intervention. So the Kansas Corporation Commission, sometimes called the KCC, regulates investor-owned utilities. An investor-owned utility is Evergy, for example, is the largest investor-owned utility in Kansas. They're called an investor-owned utility because they have shareholders. They're a private company. So the KCC, so our work often has us engaging at the KCC. We do that by engaging in something called dockets, which is a legal process that makes decisions about your energy use. We work to provide education and information to the KCC staff and to the commissioners themselves. And we really have worked over the last several years to encourage more transparent and engagement and accessible engagement for the public, for you all to be able to make public comments and for you to be able to have a better understanding of how the utility industry works. The KCC is comprised of administrative staff, lawyers, and 3 governor-appointed commissioners. Ultimately, the decisions that the KCC play a large role in shaping the energy policy that we have. So currently, CEP is one of a group of organizations who are intervening at the Corporation Commission for Evergy, for an energy efficiency programs that they're wanting to run. So we're bringing experts forward to try to have more transparency in how the funding is going to be spent on energy efficiency, and really make sure that that money is being spent in the areas that need it most. I'm a working professional. I can afford to put a higher efficiency heating or air conditioning unit in my house. My neighbors in low-income communities shouldn't have to help me pay for that. We should be directing those dollars to those folks in 67214 who need it more than I do. So that's one of the things that we're advocating for at the KCC. There's a paper on your table that talks about the things that you can do, and the KCC is actually accepting public comments until July 8th on that energy efficiency docket. So there's a toolkit that we've put together that provides a lot of information about ways that you can be involved. So if this is something that you care about, I would encourage you to check that out. The Climate and Energy Project, along with our Clean Energy Business Council, and I know there's at least one council member here, work at the Kansas legislature. We have a government affairs person who helps to advance clean energy and climate policies at the State House. During the legislative session, we provide weekly updates. If something's happening that you need to know about, we provide action alerts. We work with other coalitions to research and vet and develop clean energy and climate policies throughout the year. Lastly, we provide education to policymakers throughout the year, not just during the legislative session. So if they have questions about what's happening in wind or solar or energy efficiency, they know they can call us and we'll help provide information for them. We're excited that next year we plan to be advocating for updated policies that will help remove some additional barriers to rooftop solar and to really see how we can advance community solar projects as well. We do a little bit of work at the federal level, but most of it is we don't have a presence in Washington, but we work with a lot of organizations across the country that do, and so we try to keep abreast of what's happening in that area. So I want to spend the rest of my time talking about civic participation. Civic participation is programming that starts with our Kansas integrated voter engagement work and includes our Kansas Climate Corps, Kansas Environmental Leadership, and then what we call social cohesion. A good friend of ours who worked with us on our first set of integrated voter engagement described this as a year-round program that connects voter engagement to issue-based organizing to build power, sustainability, and impact over multiple election cycles. You heard a little bit about that from many of our panelists today, that yes, the voting is important, but that's not the only thing that's important. Traditional voter engagement focuses on voter registration, get out the vote efforts, or sometimes a specific policy or bill. With IVE, Integrated Voter Engagement, we do that work all year round in every program that we're a part of. It really is part of a way to transform voters into people who will take action on issues that they care about. We look at it as not just an election cycle, but we look at the election more as a milestone and not as an end goal. So why is this important? There are a lot of reasons, and we'll get to some of them in just a bit, but in general, it focuses on the long game. We're stuck with these maps for 10 years, but if we're building power around the issues that people care about, we really can make big changes along the way. That's not to say that voter registration and get out the vote efforts are not important, because they are critical as well. It's just not where we spend our focus, time, and energy. We work with a lot of key partners like Loud Light who do that work so well, and so we just support their efforts. This is something we call the IVE wheel, or the Integrated Voter Engagement Wheel. At CEP, we consider IVE to be synonymous with long-term power building. So you can think about it like a wheel with the goal of building power at the center or at the hub. Each spoke radiates out to a different strategy or a different tactic, like a lever, where we can exert some pressure and see how the system responds. So the face of our IVE work is called the Kansas Climate Corps, and CORE stands for Community Organizing for Resilience and Equity. In this case, the Kansas Climate Corps is a network of people and opportunities that work together to generate and support climate resilience across the state, especially as it relates to the link between health, energy, and equity. The power that we build doesn't come from a central location or an organization. It comes from our work, from our partners, our allies, our volunteers, and all of the partners and allies and volunteers that they engage, as well as the ones that they engage. So thinking about it, as Barbara said, it's 10 people, and those 10 people are talking to the next 10 people, and those 10 people are talking to the next 10 people. I'm sure you wouldn't be surprised that the people who care about the issue of climate change are also the people who care about progressive issues overall. So we're all connected. We all have this opportunity to support each other, and that's what we do. So the Kansas Climate Corps has various ways to engage, so people can pick the areas of action that most call to them. So are you really passionate about making sure people can pay their electricity bills? Or do you think that people shouldn't have their power shut off? There's a place for you. Do you really care about sustainability and making sure that we're protecting water or that we're protecting the environment? There's a place for you. Are you a wind geek like me, or do you care about solar? There's a place for you in the Kansas Climate Corps. So going back to the wheel, the areas that we care about and that we focus most on are organizing and mobilizing communities. We do some get out the vote work. We work to develop strong leaders. We educate and engage the electorate. We do some public persuasion to achieve policy impact, and we do work in different ways to hold elected officials accountable. So once someone signs up and commits to being a Kansas Climate Corps member, they're introduced to various ways that they can engage and earn some cool Climate Corps swag along the way. You can earn some points for each thing that you do with us. So when we think about organizing and mobilizing communities and get out the vote, a couple of those spokes that I want to talk about are, first of all, CEP has partnered with a national organization called the Environmental Voter Project. Their work is to increase voter demand for environmental leadership by figuring out who environmental voters are and then turning them into consistent voters. It's really a shame to know that millions and millions and millions of environmentalists, people who would put the environment or climate change number one on their list of concerns, are registered to vote, but they don't vote regularly. And so the Environmental Voter Project has had some success in identifying who those super environmental voters are and then making contact with them regularly to get them to the polls. They just last year brought Kansas into one of the states that they work in. No surprise, Georgia's one of their states, and now Kansas is one of their states too. In some of the work that they did with things like the climate voter pledge, with some phone banking that I'll talk about in a minute, in some of the Kansas races, they had an additional 3% turnout. I think 3%, that's huge for voter turnout. So we partner with the Environmental Voter Project. Part of the other reason we do that is because consistently politicians don't look at climate change as an issue they care about. And we know that they don't look at it as an issue they care about because we are not consistently going to the polls as environmentalists. We're not making our presence known. So we encourage you to think about signing the Kansas Climate Corps voter pledge. We also work with voter to voter, and this may be something that you all are familiar with. It's the part of the voter network. And this is something called relational organizing. It's encouraging your friends and family to get out and vote. We're a small staff based all over the state. We don't have the capacity to knock on doors, but we do have the capacity to reach out to people who care about our issues and ask them to work with their friends and family to get them to vote. Studies have shown that this is a very effective way to get people to vote is by asking them. If someone who they know asks them to vote, it is more likely to turn out voters. So the voter network's results prove this. They were launched in 2018, and the voters that those ambassadors connected with turned out at a stunning 25% higher than the general public. So in last year's elections, that happened again. There's a very easy platform that you can sign up to be a part of a team. We would love to have you sign up to be a part of the Kansas Climate Corps team, but you can be a part of multiple teams and working to track your friends and family through the voter process. Another of our partnerships with the Environmental Voter Project is through phone banking. They have a very easy to use platform and proven messages that you can be trained on and then use to call likely environmentalists here in Kansas and ask them to get to the polls. Again, environmentalists likely share progressive values, so you want to get those folks to the polls. We're pulling from lists of people who care about the environment, so they're going to be nice to you when you call because they care about the environment. So what you're doing is just helping them remember to get to the polls. The other thing that we do a lot of work on is public persuasion and educating and engaging the electorate. So we have been engaged in ongoing work with public health and climate experts to produce the Climate and Health Connections videos. It's a series about climate change and public health. And we'll use those videos in the upcoming year to facilitate a core peer learning circle to engage people around this content. Sometimes I've heard people say, I don't know enough about climate change. I can't talk to anybody about that, or I don't know about clean energy, or I don't know about this other issue. We really want to engage with folks to help you understand these issues better so that you feel confident and comfortable talking with your friends and neighbors about them. We'll also use the Climate and Health Declaration as a way to increase the number of Kansans taking a stand on climate change as a public health concern. I said 400 Kansans were in the rotunda, all excited to take action on climate change. We need even more if we're going to make an impact here in our state. By engaging with networks like Voter to Voter and by getting out the vote, we continue to advocate for equitable clean energy and climate solutions. The policy impact occurs there as well as with our policy efforts at the Kansas Corporation Commission and at the State House. Another reason why we are really invested in the next governor's race, or this governor's race, is that right now we have two really terrific corporation commissioners that were appointed by Governor Kelly, Commissioner Duffy and Commissioner French, and they both understand and care about taking action on climate, and next governor will get to reappoint two new commissioners. We want to keep those commissioners in place. There was a time before Governor Kelly put them into place that our organization couldn't even intervene in dockets. We were denied on multiple occasions. And so it matters who we have representing us at the Kansas Corporation Commission if we want to have climate action and good energy policy. So all of this that I've talked about, of the work that we're doing, will help hold elected officials accountable by driving more people who prioritize climate resilience to the polls. The candidates, their campaigns, political organizations will have to consider these priorities and incorporate them into their platforms. We also work really hard to help people be put into leadership positions, to be able to grow their confidence to do things like run for office, or to do things like speak at a public hearing, which you'll have an opportunity to do on June 27th, which is also in our toolbox. At the end of the day, in order to build this power, we really need to collectively feel invested in the activities that will positively impact climate resilience. So you have a handout on your table that shows some different ways that you can be engaged, and we would love to invite you to join us for all of those. Lastly, I'm not going to try to tell you that it's all unicorns and rainbows. This is hard work. It is hard work. It can be time consuming, and it requires us to be very intentional. But there are some pretty serious reasons why we should do this work. We think it's important as an organization. We're asking you to join us. We hope that you will.
Bravo, that was good. We're open for questions, so if you have a question, we do. I've got a question. With this current situation with gas and the price of gas and the war, et cetera, do you think we're going to be going backwards for a while? Are you concerned at all?
I'm very concerned about what is happening with the fossil gas industry. I refuse to call it the natural gas industry. It's not natural. That's a fossil fuel talking point. So it's fossil gas or it's fracked gas. We're already seeing the fossil gas saying we have to do more, we have to have more gas. They're making policies that won't allow cities to decide to move away from gas, and we have a lot of work to do on that front. 15 years ago when I was doing this work, we were talking about fossil gas as a bridge fuel, something that you had to do in order to get to renewables. That's BS. We don't need fossil fuels. Technology has changed, has advanced, prices have gone down. We can do it with renewables, we can do it with battery storage. We don't need the pollution, the climate impacts from fossil gas.
Thank you. The next question, since solar power is invasive to land and wildlife, is CEP concentrating as much or more on wind power and turbines?
You know, it's an interesting dilemma that we have. There are people who would say that wind turbines and wind power are invasive to species and to land, okay? We look at solar panels as really important to our future. It would be great if everybody had solar panels on their roof. But even if everyone had solar panels on their roof, it would not be enough for us to meet the climate crisis. The International Energy Administration says we should be building the world's largest solar array every day for the next decade if we have any hope of managing the climate crisis that we're facing. So, do I wish we could just do rooftop? Sure. Is that a reality? It's not. And so there are going to be some trade-offs. When I think about utility scale solar and the land that it uses, what I know is that it is a land bank. There isn't going to be another intermodal built or another large scale manufacturing facility It's going to be there for the life of the project. The land is going to rest. It's going to regenerate. If we can figure out the economics and if we can figure out the technology, we could do co-use. We could do some agriculture with the solar panels. But it's not a choice to just say no to utility scale solar. We have to have everything.
Okay. I like this question. Will the state really pay for us to install solar panels on our homes like the ads keep saying?
They will not. I'm sorry to tell you. I will tell you, though, that there is, if we could pass the Build Back Better Act that President Biden has put forward, or some version of it, there are opportunities to help fund some solar arrays. I've been seeing a lot of ads for solar lately, so I put my name in to see who was selling what. And the ones that you all are seeing around here are ADT Solar. Does ADT sound familiar to any of you? Yeah, they're a security company. They are not a solar company. If I was going to put solar on my roof, I'd be talking to the local solar installers, because those are the people that you can trust. Those are the people that live in your communities. And folks who try to tell you something's free, don't trust them.
Agrovoltaics is taking off in Arizona and other states. What's the status here in Kansas?
So agrovoltaics is what I was saying when I said co-use for solar. And so it can mean a lot of things. It can be pollinator fields around solar arrays, which is great for agriculture. It's good for the environment. It can be growing cover crops or vegetables under solar panels. We've seen some examples of some small-scale farms having success with that. There's also potential to do grazing, to do sheep grazing in co-use. So instead of having any kind of mowing, you could graze sheep around agrovoltaics. There is a couple of efforts going on around Northeast Kansas with KU, K-State, to apply for some federal grants to try to do some research around it. What I will tell you is, in talking with the solar developers, it's a lot more expensive right now. And so it can add 30% to the cost of putting in a solar array. So the research is trying to figure out, how do you get that to be more cost effective so that you can affordably do agrivoltaics. So I think we're moving in that direction. It used to be, when utility scale solar was first really getting scaled up, that they would just rock everything underneath. They would just scrape the land and rock. They don't do that anymore. It's bad practice. It's not good for the environment, and it's not good for them, right? So now they look to have low-lying plants that aren't going to get too high, because, again, they don't want to have to try to mow it, and they certainly don't want to have to spray it. And so we will see more agrivoltaics going forward, but it is just emerging now.
Thank you. Time for one last question. We have so many good questions. Will you stay around for a bit?
Happy to stay around and chat.
Okay. Are you looking at the issues with recycling the debris left from wind farms and/or solar generation? If so, what is being done to recycle these items?
Sure. So recycling wind blades is the biggest issue. Those blades are mostly made of fiberglass, and so there are new industries popping up that come out and chop those blades up and then haul them off to a plant to be ground up into pellets and then to be reused. I was just in Cloud County this week at the Meridian Way wind farm. We took some folks out for a couple of tours, and I was really interested to hear those folks talk about their company, which is EDP Renewables, and they have a commitment as a company to recycle everything. And so they were talking about a few blades that had been struck by lightning that needed to be replaced. And they had a company come out, and they had pictures of the company who was cutting up the blades and then hauled them back to their manufacturing facility to reuse them. The rest of the turbine, we haven't had to take any of those towers down in Kansas yet because they repower them. The ones that are 20 years old now, they take the nacelle, the top piece, off of the wind turbine, and they put a new one up so that it can be more efficient. And so the tower parts have not yet needed to be replaced. Those are all steel, though, and so there's a market for for steel, so they'll be recycled in that manner. As it relates to solar, solar panels are mostly glass, and so there is glass recycling, and so they are recycled as well. They're put into ground with steel, and so the steel, again, is recycled. But we're not seeing a lot of that yet because the price of solar has really just now gotten economical to where you will start seeing more of those large-scale solar arrays.
Thank you. I learned a lot. Thank you very much.